The next structure I'm going to talk about is the cytoskeleton. And again, cyto means cell, and I'm assuming everyone understands what skeleton means. This is a network of long protein strands that are in the cytosol. Remember, the cytosol is the liquid part of the cytoplasm. The function, just like the function of our skeleton, is to provide support. Imagine if we don't have a skeleton, we'd just be a floppy bag of meat. It reminds me of, I can never remember which Harry Potter it is. I think it's Harry Potter #2 when, I don't remember his name. There was a professor that all of the women loved, but he wasn't really a very good magician. And anyway, so Harry was practicing Quidditch and he broke his arm because he fell off his broom. And this professor, I know that he's played by the actor named Kenneth Branagh. He had like curly, kind of longish blonde hair. And I remember Ron Weasley's mother was just in love with him. Anyway, so he rushed onto the field and he tried to do a spell to heal Harry's arm, but instead he accidentally deleted all the bones from Harry's arm. I don't know if you remember that scene, but if you see that scene, you can see that his arm is just kind of like rubber and floppy. That's what our whole body would look like. So the cytoskeleton does the same thing as our skeleton. It provides support and gives shape. It can also aid in movement, just like our skeleton does. We have muscles that move our body, but the muscles only work because they have hard structures to basically, like if you have a string that's attached, and then you can move it back and forth, that's how our muscles work. So it contracts and it pulls things one way or the other. Cytoskeleton does the same thing. Now there are two main fibers for the cytoskeleton. We have microtubules and we have microfilaments. Microtubules, which you can see are basically tubes. That's why we call them tubules, and it's not pronounced tubules or tubules. It's pronounced tubules. Tubules. Actually, sorry, I did that. My phonetics is wrong. It should be there we go. Tubules. I'm not very good at writing phonetics, but I think that's how you pronounce it. Tubules. So these are hollow tubes, which you can see from this little animation that's showing you how they're put together. They are hollow, and they're made of a protein called tubulin. Again, in means protein, and guess what? It's named because it forms tubes. And each molecule has two different subunits. They've got alpha and beta. Doesn't really matter. Microtubules radiate out from a central point called a centrosome near the nucleus. And this is the centrosome here. And all of the green things that you see are microtubules. We're going to talk more about that in chapter 8. Hopefully I will be seeing you in person by then when we talk about cell division. But the microtubules, their function is to hold organelles in place. Remember that organelles are basically floating inside the cytoplasm, but in order for them not to just kind of like bounce around inside of the cytosol, they have microtubules that help hold them in place, and they help maintain the cell shape. They also act as a track to guide organelles. Now, this is some of the coolest animations that I can find on YouTube at the moment. It's actually amazing. They are literally computer models that are modeled after the actual structure and behavior of these molecules. So what you just saw there, the little dude holding up the vesicle, is a motor protein, and it is absolutely amazing because this is actually what it looks like in real life. It's just a computer model of what it looks like. The motor protein is literally attached to, you can see the little, nope. Well, anyway, you see the little things sticking out from the vesicle? They look like little spikes or whatever. Those are carbohydrates on the outside of the vesicle that act as a binding site for those two little arms of the motor protein. So the motor protein can grab onto it and be like, oh yeah, okay, I can take you somewhere. And then the motor protein like uses its tiny little legs to walk down the microtubule to take the vesicle from one part of the cell to another part of the cell. It's absolutely freaking brilliant that this is what actually happens inside your cell. Like you think about all these little molecules or like little dudes carrying vesicles, and that's actually what it looks like. Okay, the other part of the cytoskeleton, sorry, I get really super excited when I talk about biology. Microfilaments are long threads of a bead-like protein called actin. Again, the IN suffix means protein, and I'm not really sure if the act comes from action or something similar like that, but it's quite possible because actin is the main protein of your muscles that acts when you're, what do you call that? They perform when your muscles contract. So act, action, activity, I think the act prefix all comes from the same root, meaning like maybe to do something. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. Anyway, there is the actin filament. The actin filaments are all linked end to end, and they are also wrapped around each other, which you can see here. It just looks like kind of a string of beads that's twisted. And the function of actin is in cell movement. Again, I just remember the word act. When you act, you're moving, you're doing something. So again, in the contraction of cell muscles, oh my God, the contraction of muscle cells and in cell movement. Okay, now there's a third component to the cytoskeleton, which is intermediate filaments. These are rods that anchor the nucleus and some of the organelles. They do help to maintain the shape of the nucleus. Hair follicle cells. So this is a hair follicle cell. This is what creates the hair shaft, which is what you call like an individual hair is a hair shaft. They produce large quantities of intermediate filament proteins. This is a scanning electron microscope image of a hair shaft. And you see how the proteins are kind of layered in like kind of these shingles or these like layers. So when you wash your hair, usually you wash with shampoo and then conditioner. Shampoo and conditioner are actually an acid-base reaction, which I will bring up again in chemistry way down the road when you take chemistry with me next year for 10B. And that is when you shampoo, the shampoo kind of lifts I'll call them the shingles. So you've got your hair shaft looks like this, it lifts them up so that the underneath can get clean and like you can strip the oils from your hair and like clean it that way. And then the conditioner comes along and what do you call it? Like smooths them all down, which is why hair tends to feel and look smoother when you condition it because it takes those little shingles and it makes them all smooth again.